So the best way to control how you react when you're feeling big emotions is to take space and time and to recognize that you're feeling those emotions and not feel like you have to do something right after it. So when you have a situation that creates that emotion in you, it's having that part of you that signals, I'm in a big emotion right now. And what you want to do is recognize what you need is time and space, because you're not going to be able to move forward productively until that emotion has come down. So it's important to not take action, because that's what happens when we react. When we react, we're in the emotion and we move forward with action immediately because we're looking for relief. But we don't ever really get the relief when we react out of our emotions. We get the lasting relief when we respond out of our emotions. So when you respond out of your emotions, it's important for you to kind of go into it thinking like, I'm going to respond out of my emotions, so that when that emotion comes in and you have that typical feeling like of moving forward into the action, you kind of slow down a little bit. In the beginning, you're just going to notice how you continue to react, because self-awareness, it's something that can evolve over time. And some of us can pick up on it really quick, and others, it just takes more time and practice. So it's important also not to judge yourself about how quickly you're kind of picking up on your emotional stuff. So when you have that, when you feel that emotion or even you could have that event and not feel the emotion, but know that the emotion is going to be on its way. It's, again, really, when you have those big emotions, allowing time and space for the emotions to kind of come down, and then you're in a position to say, what's next? Because the what's next we say right out of the gate of our emotion is 99% never going to be the thing that truly resolves the conflict that has come up. Because you're not in the mindset to be able to interact and show up in the way that you want to show up. So it's about bringing that emotion down and recognizing that you're also having a physiological response. You're not in, that feeling of reaction can be a defense mechanism. So it's important to recognize that you're not in harm's way. So you can take some time and you don't have to go off of that instinct response. It's just reminding yourself that you don't need to have that physiological reaction if that emotion is really big. Another piece of that, though, is also respecting the emotion you're having, depending on what's happening. Because it's not about avoiding having emotions. Emotions are really important for us to have because they signal to us different things like boundary issues and that sort of thing. So the time and space part's really big, because when you give yourself time and space, it's not just about bringing the emotion down. It's about you being like, all right, what just happened? And how did that make me feel? And what does that mean about a critical boundary that might be missing in this relationship? So it gives you the time and space to be able to really see what's going on, so that from that place, you can then decide how you want to respond. When it comes to acting out of our emotions and feeling regret or an emotional hangover afterwards, it's very common. And the most important thing that you can do to alleviate that sense of guilt or shame or, I really feel like I really overreacted to that and I shouldn't have, the best thing you can do is communicate that to the person. And, in my own experience with this, because working through that is honestly one of the most important things you can do for your own peace and well-being and feeling freer and lighter and all of those things. And also recognizing this is really important when it comes to wanting to manifest, because the guilt that you carry holds you back. And it's about letting go of feeling that shame towards yourself for having that reaction. Because what you have to realize is that you've developed that reaction over time. And it dates all the way back to when you were a child and when you encountered really difficult things. So you've created your system of responses based on survival, psychological survival, and those types of things. So it's important for you to recognize that this is almost like a immediate reaction. It's something that's so ingrained in you that you have little control over. But when we can recognize feelings of guilt and feeling bad, what that actually is the door opening to us then disconnecting from those reactions that create those scenarios where we end up feeling guilty about what we did or said. So a specific example that I personally dealt with was a dynamic with my husband, Brad, where he would do something, whether it was forget something, didn't do a certain errand or whatever, and I would react out of emotion. And sometimes I would react in a way that was really negative. But the problem that got me, and I would feel bad about it, but I might have been right about the scenario. So I was really kind of stuck in this area of like, well, I'm right, but then I also resented myself for how I reacted. So the way I got out of it was, and kind of transcended it and moved beyond it, was I recognized that it didn't matter what he did. All that mattered was really looking at my reactions to it. And so I started to practice. And what I did was every time a situation would come up, I would react, but then I would recognize it. And then I'd either like call him or text him or come to him and be like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have reacted that way. And then after I would do that with him, I would then kind of rehash with myself and be like, all right, you know what? I know that this response in me is not something that I need to punish myself for. I see where this came from, and the more I punish myself and judge myself for this, the more I hold myself back from everything I want. And so it's really important to do two things when you're dealing with this. Number one, communicate to the external person or situation or whatever it is. You own your shit. You own your part of it. You own whatever that dynamic is, and you're part of that. But then you forgive yourself.